What's going on, everyone? Today I'll be going over if rerun banners are even worth it in Honkai Sorrow. Let's just break this down as carefully as possible, starting off with the general answer, which is going to be sometimes. Now there's reruns that are worth it, like most supports or even some niche units, and there's reruns that are never worth it. Typically these are going to be DPSs, but let's just break this down, like I said, starting off with examples of good reruns, right? Now a good rerun would be if you're seeing Sunday on the banner. Right, Sunday, Tribi, Robin reruns, these are okay to pull on generally. A lot of it does depend on where your account is standing, but even so, Robin still at the top, Tribi still at the top, Sunday still at the top, right? If you see a Sparkle rerun, it's a little 50-50, but this game is easy to the point where your account will be far from bricked if you decide to pull on Sparkle's banner and you ultimately do end up getting her. I personally can max out the endgame every refresh using Sparkle, and I have been doing so since version 2.0. She's a great support, she's just the worst out of the four that I mentioned. So keep in mind, generally support reruns, even on their first, right, they're going to be fine. On their second, you may want to consider, but typically they're going to be okay even by then, right? Support power creep in this game is pretty slow. You only want to be concerned about DPS power creep for the most part. But next is going to be sustained units, right? Think of Aventurine, Hyacinth, Huohuo, Lingsha, limited sustained units. There is essentially no sustained power creep at all. They all just do different things. Aventurine does shielding, and you can't die with him on your team. Like, you literally just cannot die with Aventurine on your team. Hyacinth is just all around the board great, you know, doing damage, keeping your team alive. She's made for HP scaling DPSs. Huohuo gives energy regen back to your team, and Lingsha has a consistent cleanse and especially shines in break teams. All limited sustains do something different, but generally they will do the job when it comes to keeping your team alive. Right, so if you're seeing a limited sustain on the banner and you're struggling with sustain, then you could definitely consider pulling for that sustain, whether it's a new one or a rerunning one. Nothing to really worry about too much for the most part. Sustains are really not that high of a priority at the end of the day, considering that low cycle clears and sustainless teams are basically the norm at this point, but it's just something to consider at the end of the day. Now you could also pull for someone like Kafka, right? Like the niche units, if you have a team comp like Break or Dot that's really you're going all in on and you're investing heavily into, wouldn't really be the most optimal thing for Break specifically, like a Fugue rerun, since Break isn't in the meta right now, but you could consider it. But for someone like Kafka, sure, at the moment as of version 3.5, she would be worth because Dot is very in right now. And I feel like with the new Elation path coming in 4.0, Dot is probably going to be a long-term thing alongside the main scaling DPSs that we have. But that's just one to consider, right? I personally wouldn't really consider Kafka to be an overall like great rerunning unit, but for the short term, definitely one to consider. But what I said before about the supports and the sustains, that's generally the reruns that you're going to want to consider pulling for if they're not must pulls for your account. Now with good reruns also come bad reruns, and bad reruns are mainly just going to consist of generally just power crept units, but even so DPS reruns. And I'll give you some examples right now. Someone like an Aglaya rerun back in version 3.3. Aglaya, when she got her first rerun alongside the Herda, they were both meta, but think about what happened the very next patch after. We got Archer, who is better than both of them and is free. We got Saber, who isn't free but still better than both of them. We got Finon, who's better than both of them, right? And there's also the 200 pulls for Archer Lycone thing that we got in 3.4 as well. So even when a DPS is still rerunning, when they're still meta, still not going to be worth it, right? Dr. Ratio got a rerun in, I believe, version 3.2, obviously not worth it. Yunli rerun, not worth it. Even a My Day rerun, not worth it. No DPS getting a rerun typically is going to be worth it. You almost never want to pull for a DPS that's getting a rerun. It's common and honestly basic info, right, that you don't want to pull for a rerunning DPS, but it's true, right? This isn't like Genshin where you can pull a Hu Tao 5 years after her launch and she'll still be good. It's not like Zenith where you can pull Miyabi on her second rerun and she'll still be good, right? Honkai Sorrow, unfortunately, when it comes to meta and power creep, it's just not going to allow you to use a one specific DPS long term unless you go all in on investment and maybe even picking up some Eidolons and Lycones as well. Big investment needed to use these older DPSs. It can be done, but if you want to save yourself time and effort, you'd be better off pulling for the more modern DPSs that are coming out because there is definitely DPS power creep. If you've ever played Honkai Impact, it's essentially the same. You want multiple team comps ready to go, but you want multiple meta team comps ready to go at the same time, right? So you don't want to pull for an old DPS unless it's like a specific situation where you absolutely need that DPS. Maybe Finon, since he's AoE, you need an AoE DPS, but that's a really niche situation and it's not going to happen for a lot of people, right? If you consider pulling an AoE DPS for Pure Fiction, let me just say a few things, right? Number one, Pure Fiction, if you're getting 11 out of 12 stars each refresh, that's only half a pull you're missing out. For every 12 weeks, you're only missing out on one pull, and you can build up Himiko, force her, and still get the job done. I literally can clear Pure Fiction with Pela, right? You don't need to be pulling units for specific game modes, right? But on top of everything that I mentioned, another thing is leaks. Leaked upcoming characters are going to be your friend when you're deciding if a rerun banner is worth it. For example, even when we don't have info on the official info on the character kits for the upcoming patch, you could still have a little bit of clairvoyance when you take a look at leaks for DPSs that are coming soon. Maybe Finon is still meta when he gets his first rerun, but if there's a new AoE DPS that comes out a patch or two later that's just simply better than Finon, then maybe it's not worth pulling for Finon even if he is still meta during that patch when he's getting a rerun. You really have to be on edge with DPS reruns because almost always there's just going to be a better DPS that comes out the patch after or the patch after the next patch, right? DPS comes, this is a lot of DPS frequency in Honkai Star Rail. They're always coming out with a new DPS every patch or every other patch, so you gotta be wary of this, right? I'm not going to say that your DPS that you already have is going to get power crept 2 patches from now, but it's something that you want to keep in mind, right? A DPS is not going to stay in the number 1 spot for very long in a game like Honkai Star Rail, but it's a lot like Honkai Impact in that sense, like I said, but this is all just stuff that you have to keep in mind at the end of the day. If you're going to pull a 5-star unit, they should either be a new DPS, or if it's going to be a rerun, then it should be someone like a support, right? Pulling on the 3rd rerun banner of Sunday is going to be much more beneficial than pulling for the first Finon rerun, right? But that's about it for this video. Keep in mind everything that I said, right? There may be some situations where a DPS's rerun could be good on your account specifically. Like, for example, in a really niche situation, if you have every support but just bad DPSs, then you might want to go for that next rerunning DPS. This is a really niche situation, and like I said, there's no way of fully knowing if you should commit or not until you look at leaks, because in Honkai Star Rail, we already know all the characters along with their kits that are coming for the next couple patches. We know the kits of the units in 3.6, we know the kit of the character Cyrene that's coming in 3.7, no leaks for 3.8 yet, but we're even getting leaks for 4.0 already. So take a look at leaks for character kits if you really want that little bit of clairvoyance, like I said earlier. But that's about it for this video. I'll see y'all. Goodbye.